Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott. Handheld portable smoke machines have become very common in the past few years. And so I decided that I would say yes to an invite to look at one of these. And so I did, going back now about 4 or 5 months ago. My kind of goal was to see if I could spice up my product shots. Obviously I'm doing product shots multiple times a week for my various reviews. And so I thought adding a little bit of smoke effect could be an interesting addition to that. I've actually had a lot of fun with the Colbor CF5, which I'm reviewing here today. And you've probably seen some of the smoke from the CF5 in a number of my product shots in either video or stills form at this point. So the question is, obviously, when I'm going to review something, however, whether I've had fun or not, does something like the CF5 make sense for you? Today, I'm going to give it a quick review to see if it delivers on the promise of being able to be a handheld way to add smoke effects to either your portrait work, your product photography, food photography, and a variety of other things. We're going to dive into it and take a look today. However, first of all, I do want to say that this unit was sent to me by Colbor, now going back to the beginning of 2025 for evaluation. I do owe them an apology because this review kept getting pushed back because I've been so busy. And so I'm very late in delivering on my promise to give it a review. However, they did supply this unit for me, gave it to me, but they've had no input on my review, and they will not see my findings until they are released to the public. So first of all, let's talk about what you get for your money here. Everything inside the box includes this nice case that everything fits into. And so that includes the case, a remote control unit, 60 milliliters of liquid smoke, the smoke chamber itself, an attachment cover, a magnetic fan and RGB light attachment that I've got on right now, and then 5 different other attachments that are separate from the fan and RGB light. And so you can use those to create shape the smoke effect in different kinds of ways. There's a USB-C charging cord, the fog machine itself. Now the fog machine itself is a 40-watt unit. Because I don't have a lot of experience with these smoke machine units, I don't actually know how that plays out. But what I do know is that the battery holds up for, at least for my kind of use, for a very long time. And I've only charged it at the beginning of the process, and so that's been months ago. And I've used it in, little squibs and squirts here periodically on a regular basis, and the battery life is still holding up. It's looking right now that I'm at about 40% of battery life. Now, one of the things that they are touting here, that they're saying that they're first in the market to do for one of these handheld units, is that this is an adjustable unit. And so it is adjustable up to 60 degrees. And so you can rotate it in different ways to get slightly different angles to your actual smoke effect process. Obviously, the nicest thing about that is that if you're wanting to direct smoke more specifically onto something, that you can do that. Obviously, the best application for that is that it allows you to to direct the smoke. If you're wanting it to come into a set or a scene, you can actually direct it in that direction. Now, the addition of the built-in RGB light, which allows you to, rotate through a variety of different color temperatures and the full RGB range of different looks that you can achieve. You can go through that. You can also switch it over into the fan mode, as you can see here, and so that is going to help to distribute that smoke out. And there are different levels of the fan itself that you can also control, and so you can see here that the fan is continuing to blow out, and so it distributes the smoke into a broader area. And so that level, there are 3 different levels on the fan itself, and so again they tout that this is another market first to have the fan and RGB light attachment there. Now, the intensity of the smoke itself, it can be regulated in 25 different levels, and so that's going to allow you to have, more precise control over what kind of smoke effect you create. And obviously, you can tweak that through the various attachments for, how kind of fine or precise, or if you want it to kind of sit in a dry ice type effect. There's different attachments that allow you to achieve those different things. They even have what they call a master mode, which allows you to kind of set up some custom settings so you can have some continuous smoke duration. And so that could be involve things like interval timing, the total number of smoke bursts that you want. And so if you're wanting to set something up in advance, maybe if you're working then from behind the camera, you can set that up through this unit. The remote control itself will allow you to control the unit from up to 10 meters, a little over 30 feet away. The price right now, as of yesterday when I checked at Amazon, I saw that it's a $129 US list price with a potential 10% off, and $189 Canadian, and again with a potential 10% off. So let's talk about some things I like and some things that I don't like. One of those I've already alluded to as far as things that I like, and that is that the battery lasts for a long time. Now, I'm not doing something where I'm trying to create smoke for hours and hours on end, but rather in just the actual way that I'm using it, which is what matters to me. I found that the battery holds up for a long time. I frankly haven't really had to think about it, so I get the portability of a battery-powered unit, but without having to worry about charging the battery all that often. Perfect. That's the way I want it. I find the addition of the remote control is very useful because a lot of times I'm going to be working from behind the camera, and so I want to get things set up. I can remotely control that, and so I don't get too much smoke, but then also I can monitor from behind the camera the moment for the, to get that kind of perfect moment where there's not, maybe the smoke is drifting across my product in the right way. So being able to control the smoke remotely is, for me, it's really huge. So I really have appreciated that. As I've experimented with some of the different attachments that come with it, I have found that to be interesting in different ways that you can shape the smoke and create different kinds of effects. And so I appreciate the fact that there's a nice range of accessories here that give you some options over that. And then obviously the RGB lighting and the fan, that also is really, really useful as well. I do appreciate the fact that adding color into the smoke really helps to give that smoke personality. And so I think that this magnetically attachable unit here or accessory is a really cool addition to it. I also appreciate the fact that everything does fit nicely into the case itself, and so it becomes obviously a very portable way of either storing or bringing everything along, and so that's great. I've also been pleasantly surprised, at least for the way that I'm using things, for how little of the actual fog fluid that I am using. And so, at this point, I've still got what's currently in the actual canister itself. But in the original 60 milliliters, I still got about 75% of it left in there. And so that means it's obviously holding up for a long period. And I did a little bit of research on Amazon, and it's not all that expensive to buy a much larger quantity. So for someone like me, in the way that I'm using it, that's not proving to be a significant additional cost, which I obviously appreciate. So how about some things that I don't like? When it goes to actually mounting the smoke container, it is a matter of actually threading it in. But what I found is that initially, when you're going to thread it in, it doesn't feel very definite. And so you're not quite sure that you're actually doing or accomplishing anything. Even now I'm rotating it and it's not coming free yet, but finally it has come free. But for a while there, it doesn't actually feel like you're threading. And so because it just feels kind of loose, you don't actually know you're accomplishing anything until you've rotated for a while, and you finally get to a place where, okay, I think it's mostly the way in there now, but it's not a very definite process. And so I, particularly on the first time that I used it, actually found that confusing to know whether or not I had set up or not. The second thing that I will complain about is that while it's great that you can rotate it, what I have found is that, as you can see here, it doesn't always want to balance very well. Now, to be fair, they do have a 1/4 inch thread on the bottom, so you could put it on like a little tripod type stand. But at the same time, if you don't have that, that's obviously going to be a problem. And the fact that it doesn't quite balance, and so that does kind of defeat the purpose a little bit of being able to rotate it. And one other thing I will point out is that there's a little release here that you should push when rotating that. It doesn't always naturally fall to hand, and so sometimes I don't actually see it and I just kind of force it, which so far has not destroyed anything, but it's probably not a great idea for the long run. So I would like that balance point to be a little bit better. And I think that that would require designing it to where there's a little bit more weight in the base and a little bit less at the top. I suspect that if you had a different attachment on that has less weight on it than what, not that this is heavy, but you can see it's balancing fine with that on there. But if I add the attachment with the fan and the RGB light, sometimes it will hold, sometimes it won't. So anyway, just something to watch out for there. My conclusion is this. I think that smoke machines are useful for a lot of different types of photography or videography, from food and product shots, the way that I'm using it, to portrait effects. I'm probably less likely to use that, although some people really love that. Obviously, smoke machines are getting smaller and more portable, and I think increasingly less expensive to operate. And so I certainly do appreciate that. I feel like you're actually getting quite a lot here for your money. And obviously, for some people, the whole idea of the smoke, it's going to be a complete gimmick. It's not something you're interested in. But if you're wanting to do something interesting with strobing or some creative work, these are really, really cool. And I think that the amount of flexibility is here. I'll admit I have a limited amount of experience with smoke machines. But for me and what I'm trying to do, I found that this basically does everything that I want it to do. So kudos on that. So if you're looking for a portable smoke machine, so far so good with the Colbor CF5. If you want more information about it, you can find links in the description down below. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day and let the light in.